한국어 now.
I think I want to keep some.
So, I guess you didn't watch it.
Oh no, I have the hiccups. Look away.
Hey, Refuge Youth, we got. I can't do it. It's so hard.
Wait, it's recording? No, it's not.
Hey, Refuge Youth, we miss you guys so much, me and Kyrie here, and we just want to take this time to say 2020 is a really crazy year. A lot of things have happened. COVID-19, a lot of moving. Zoom has become an international empire overnight. So we wanted to take this time and just say a little bit of the things we've learned this year, some of the lessons, some of the memories, both good and bad, that we've learned, and share that with you guys. Because we miss you guys, we want to connect with you guys. We want you guys to know what's happening in our lives, and we want to know what's happening with you guys.
Yeah, like John said, we love you guys, we miss you. Take a second, just listen to what our leaders have to say and what they learned from this year. And hopefully we'll see you guys soon.
Yeah, it wasn't too bad. I think it could have been a whole lot better, but that was for everyone. So, gotta take it with a grain of salt. Although a lot of the things that I planned on doing and wanted to do got canceled, there was still pretty big moments that happened this year. I graduated college, it's pretty big. I kind of now I'm over it because all the hype that was there died down now that I have a job and I'm working and all that stuff. But kind of helped me realize that, you know, it's not everything's gonna go the way that you planned it, and that you just gotta take life day by day. You shouldn't be looking forward too far because things like this could happen. Yeah, so it just kind of helps me not be, I guess, I'm still hopeful for next year and the things that might plan out, but I'm more focused on like daily things that are gonna happen, not, oh, I'm gonna do this tomorrow, or this is happening next week and I'm looking forward to that and I'm dreading today. It's just like, oh, today's another day, so I'm going with it. And yeah, that's how 2020 turned out. Helped me win things, helped me see things in a different way. Yeah.
In 2020, I learned that life can be really unexpected. That's not something new that people experience, people know, you always hear about it. But I think this year was a prime example of exactly that. I think more importantly, I learned that even in the unexpected and when things are super overwhelming, that you have to find moments to push through that and look for the good, even in all the stress and the chaos, and when it's really hard and really difficult to see whatever good is around you. It's really important that you push through. I think that's probably the most important thing I learned in 2020.
I think for me, the biggest thing that I probably learned was just slowing down. I think for me, I looked in this year of like, oh, there's so much stuff to do, like a list of like everything I hoped to achieve, everything I hoped would happen. And then I think it was just like a rush of movement. And then when obviously the COVID happened, it was kind of like you need to stop and you really need to like, I mean, obviously the whole world stopped and we were like forced into that. But I think for me during quarantine especially, I think the biggest thing I learned, especially during my time with God, of like that act of like sitting down and like really just listening to what's happening. And I think that was one of the biggest things for me. And I think also looking at the good that still happened. Like I graduated college, we still found a way to get married, which was a huge blessing, especially with so much chaos and like change. And I think also one of the biggest things was just realizing all the people that I had in my life, and also my husband's, who really just rallied behind us to really make that day happen. So I think I just got to see all the blessings that occurred through what was a really hard year for most, and I got to really see where I was lucky.
In 2020, I think I learned that life really can suck. It can go the exact opposite from what you were expecting for so long. And like, it's okay to be angry, and it's okay to feel like you're kind of cheated out of like things that you felt you were promised. But I think in that, like, I found a lot of comfort in knowing that like a lot of my friends and like my loved ones are also feeling the same way, and that like it's okay to mourn things and people that were kind of taken away from you. I think kind of came in perspective that like what our pastor was talking about today is like joy is a state of being and it's a choice. And I think it was really hard to choose joy every day in 2020, but I think looking back now, there was a lot of pockets where I think God reminded like me and reminded my friends and my family like there's still a lot to be happy about. Yeah, like I guess my biggest like takeaway from like 2020 is like you can be mad at God and you can be mad at your life and you could be mad at the world, but like return to a place where like you're still trusting and you still have a hope for tomorrow. Because if you lose that, like, oh God, I don't know what 2020 would have done like to my mental health. But yeah, I think I learned that it's okay to be angry and it's okay to be sad and it's okay to feel every range of emotion that God has given you, because you're allowed to. And also still had a lot of fun in 2020. My friends, they got married. That's kind of the only cool thing that happened this year. But yeah, well, by the time this video is done editing, I guess 3 of my friends so 6 of my friends, they got, not only 3 because that's weird, like 6 of my friends got married. So yes.
I think we all learned that quarantine ended up being way longer than we expected. A lot of good, a lot of bad. I got engaged this year, so that was great. She said yes, surprisingly. And then planning the whole wedding has been probably the worst thing of 2020, because it's been up and down and yes and no, the planning. But getting there is exciting. But what else happened in 2020? I don't know. So much. It feels like it's gone really quickly, but also it feels like the longest year ever. But God has been good through it all. So I think it's important to remember that, like probably everyone in this video is saying, things change, plans change. But I just try to keep remembering that God never changes. He knew 2020 was gonna happen. He's here with us through it. And as long as we keep that, when 2021 rolls around and maybe it doesn't meet our expectations, it's just so important to remember that God is there with us. It might not feel like it all the time, because that's honest. It doesn't always feel like it. But He is. He's good, and He brings us through it. We're here, it's December, it's Christmas. It doesn't feel like Christmas sometimes, but we have to remember that God is good. And so I'm excited for 2021, and 2020 hasn't been great, but God is good. So let's just remember that and keep going to next year and next year and next year. Yeah.
This year, I mean, I learned a lot, just like everybody else. We were kind of forced to, which is kind of nice, but it was hard. But I think one thing for me personally, last year I had a lot of talks in going to therapy and talking to friends about how I was really exhausted by being a people pleaser. And there was a podcast that I listened to this year specifically, kind of in the middle of COVID. I was driving to work, and in the podcast, one of the speakers said, a great way to stop being a people pleaser and like a perfectionist in that way is to stop declaring that and saying like, oh, I'm just a people pleaser, so yeah, like I'll do whatever you need me to, and put myself aside. And I don't know why, for me, learning that day, it's just something that I've mentally tried to tell myself, like, actually, I'm not a people pleaser. I'm not gonna make myself to be just to put other people before myself all the time. And so I know that probably seems small and like not grand, but it was really big for me personally, learning to say no. And I think with that this year, I've learned new habits on how to take care of myself. Still learning how to be present and how to not be so rushed all the time. But I think that this year, something really good was that it made us do that. It made us slow down. And it's something that I want to continue to learn because I'm still not super good at it. Something hard this year, I mean, the year in general was hard, but yeah, I'm really thankful for that growth, and just being able to say no is like something that's very huge for me, and I hope that I can continue to learn to create healthy boundaries for myself and for the relationships that I really care about.
2020 was like a really challenging year for a lot of people with COVID-19 and a lot of changes, especially for college students. And I think like the biggest lesson I took away from 2020 was how intimate God is with us. I have a really like powerful memory for me where it was in the season of March where graduation was kind of on the horizon, and I didn't know where I was gonna end up in terms of like, so I'm gonna go more Northern California, Southern California. I had a lot of people weighing in on different opinions. Obviously, my friends from Southern California were like, no, you're staying here. And I had a lot of people in Northern California like, we would love to have you here. And there was just two very like legitimate options on where I could end up. And I remember driving home after college ended. We were told we have to go home, you have to leave campus, you can't stay here. So me and my now wife were driving through one of the cities where there was a possibility of a job there. And I remember like we were driving through, my wife was asleep, like knocked out, and I felt my heart like break in such a real way that I haven't felt before for Orange County. And just feeling that, being in a place where I thought I was gonna end up, and feeling such a longing for another place, and how God cared that much for my future, for what I wanted. Because I had spent a lot of time praying, I had spent a lot of time talking with people about this, but then to feel God weigh in and be like, this is where I want you. And to see how God shows up and cares about the little things that we care about. Where God is so big, you know, he holds the universe in his hands, but then he cares about our individual needs and what we want. Even in a season like 2020 where it's all chaos and just craziness, there's still a lot of good that God can do. So I think that was the big lesson for me, and just seeing God care about me in the little ways. What I want, what I care about, who I care about. Just those intimate moments have become so real for me this year. So I'm very thankful for the year overall, even though it was not a fun year, but a good year.
2020 overall has been interesting, to say the least. I think my biggest takeaway from this year would probably have to be getting to know God as provider. I've had a difficult relationship with the Lord. Had a lot of heartache and a lot of just pain in the past that has been thrown on him wrongly, and navigating through that this year especially has been interesting to see like just how amazing it has been to just see the Lord come through for my wife and I, and even family members, financially, emotionally, spiritually. It just feels like through all the chaos of this year, we haven't been lacking in anything. We've always been provided for, we've always been cared for, we've always been loved on. And he's done that through people around us, he's done that through church, even just himself showing up in ways that we can't even explain. So I think that would probably have to be my biggest takeaway from this year, and biggest learning experience overall. That's just, he's a provider, he's never gonna let us down.